I think the simple answer is very successful, actually, despite a lot of the noise surrounding it. We said slightly facetiously that we scored it a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. And if you were to compare that with any other kind of development program, to get that sort of a rating is in fact very good. The key thing really is that budget monies have been spent in ways that made an impact, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure, rehabilitation and improvement, and as a knock-on effect from that on growth, and to a slightly lesser degree on poverty. And that's really the fundamental point. That's not to say that there haven't been problems. There have also been things that could have been done quite a lot better. The impacts could have been greater. But nevertheless, the overall balance is a very positive one. Firstly, budget resources have been used for priority sectors, have improved education services in particular, have improved infrastructure, and have had very positive knock-on effects. I think that's one key and fundamental lesson. The second one is, despite the fact that that was actually working reasonably well, that the main use of resources was positive, there was actually a rather tense dialogue and a rather difficult dialogue between the government and its development partners, for reasons linked to factors which are also important, but not necessarily directly related to budget support itself. So there were problems in the budget support dialogue. And I think the third point then is that going forward, one needs to be much more, I think, sanguine about what can be achieved through the process of dialogue between government and development partners. And one needs to be much more structured to make sure that that dialogue helps to improve policy and provides a useful extra to the budget support package. I mean, in many ways what happened in Tanzania was that the key elements of influence were from the funds themselves. Whereas ideally budget support should be a combination of additional money for the budget, good policy dialogue to help to improve policy, and technical assistance and capacity building to help to improve capabilities. And really only the first aspect worked well. The second two aspects were rather less good. And going forward, both for Tanzania and for the European Union and other agencies, that's what they need to work out how to improve. Well, I think what's important to mention is that it's time to use the actual results of these evaluations and to draw on those results to make policy. Because, as I say, despite the fact that there was a tense dialogue in Tanzania and much criticism of the budget support modality, there were actually good results. So if one was to learn what is working and what is not, and to keep a more balanced view of what is working and what is not, and to use that to drive policy, then I think the whole instrument would be much more successful in the future. A large amount of the money went on spending in education, and predominantly to finance teachers or teacher education. It would have been virtually impossible to finance teacher education or the expansion of teachers on the same scale by using projects. It just couldn't have happened. And then again, on the infrastructure side, a significant proportion went to road maintenance, which again is something that needs to go through the budget. It's difficult to create a project to maintain roads. And when you create a project, you undermine the existing systems of maintenance. So I think given the uses that they made in Tanzania, which were useful uses, there wasn't much alternative, actually. I think that's the key point. And I think there's a lot of false discussion about projects being used instead of budget support. If you're building a port, yes, a project makes sense. If you're trying to expand education and health and road maintenance and core government services, projects don't usually make sense.